In the annals of the Galactic Defense Force, there are stories that defy explanation. This is one of them. That's how Commander Vexlor would later begin the official report, though he'd never admit that the explanation was simple. Humans are batshit crazy. I should know. I'm the human in question. My name is Jack Fletcher, and I was the first and for a long time, only human to join the 47th Special Operations Unit of the Galactic Defense Force. The Stellar Wraiths, they called themselves. I called them my significantly less squishy co-workers. The recruitment officer, a gelatinous blob named Glurp, I'm not making this up, had been all smiles and enthusiasm. Your application is most impressive, human Fletcher. Your species has such unique qualities. Translation, they needed a diversity hire and humans were the flavor of the month. The 47th is our most elite unit, Glurp continued. 7 of his eye stalks focused on me while the 8th wandered aimlessly. Commander Vexlor personally reviewed your file. Little did I know that personally reviewed meant laughed until 3 of his auxiliary breathing sacs ruptured. On my first day, I entered the sleek titanium alloy barracks of the 47th, duffel bag slung over my shoulder, trying not to look as out of place as I felt. The room fell silent. 6 pairs of alien eyes, well, 17 if you count all of Lieutenant Glurp's turn to stare. Commander Vexlor stood at an impressive 8 feet tall, exoskeleton gleaming under the lights, mandibles clicking in what I would later learn was amusement. Ah, the human arrives. Team, meet Fletcher. Try not to break it. The others included Zorn, a hulking reptilian with regenerative abilities who could bench press a shuttle, Kiri, an avian humanoid whose reflexes were so fast she could dodge laser fire, Melix, a silicon-based life form who could withstand temperatures that would melt steel trill, a 4-armed weapons specialist from a high-gravity world who moved like water despite weighing as much as a small car, and Nexara, our tech expert with natural bioelectric abilities who could interface directly with computers. And then there was me, 5'10", no exoskeleton, no regenerative abilities, no extra limbs, just plain old human Jack. Is this some kind of joke? Zorn rumbled, scales shifting from green to an incredulous purple. This meatbag is joining the Wraiths? That's resourceful meatbag to you, lizard lips. I shot back before I could stop myself. Commander Vexlor's mandibles clicked rapidly. Oh yes, I forgot to mention. Humans have defective fear responses and no concept of appropriate hierarchy behavior. Nexara's antenna twitched. Fascinating. I've read humans evolved as persistence predators. Is that why they lack self-preservation instincts? I'm standing right here, I said, dropping my bag. And contrary to popular belief, we do have self-preservation instincts. We just ignore them when something more interesting comes along. Little did I know how prophetic those words would be. Basic training with the Stellar Wraiths was exactly what you'd expect when you're the only creature made of easily punctured flesh in a squad of living tanks. The obstacle course was my personal hell. While Zorn barreled through reinforced walls and Kiri literally flew over laser grids, I was busy calculating whether my fragile human bones could survive the drop from the 15-meter platform. Move it, Fletcher, Vexlor shouted from below. An Archelian swamp slug could clear this course faster. With all due respect, Commander, I grunted, hanging precariously from a metal bar. Archelian swamp slugs can digest titanium and secrete anti-gravity mucus. The team gathered below, watching my struggle with various levels of amusement and pity. 10 credits as it falls and ruptures its internal fluid sac, Zorn rumbled. You mean his stomach, Nexara corrected. And I'll take that bet. Humans are surprisingly resilient for such poorly designed organisms. I finally made it across, sweating and panting, to find the rest of the team had already completed their cool-down exercises. The shooting range wasn't much better. The standard-issue plasma rifle was designed for beings with significantly more upper body strength and at least 2 more fingers than I possessed. My first shot went wild, scorching the ceiling. My second nearly took off Trill's left antenna. Perhaps a smaller weapon would be more appropriate for the human's limited physiology, Melek suggested, his crystalline structure vibrating with what I assumed was laughter. "Hold my water ration," I muttered, recalibrating my grip. I closed one eye, adjusted my stance, and fired 3 rapid shots. The target's center exploded in a satisfying burst of plasma energy. The silence was deafening. "How did you compensate for the recoil variance?" Nexara finally asked. I shrugged. I didn't. I just remembered how it pulled last time and aimed lower. "You adapted." "After one attempt?" Kiri's feathers ruffled in surprise. "It's called learning from your mistakes," I said. "Humans do it all the time. Usually right before we make spectacular new ones." The real turning point came during survival training. We were dropped in the simulated environment of a Class 9 hostile planet toxic atmosphere, extreme temperature fluctuations, and indigenous predators programmed to hunt us down. While my alien teammates relied on their natural abilities or technological advantages, I was stuck with basic gear and what Commander Vexlor called my woefully inadequate endoskeleton. 6 hours in, Melek's was partially dissolved by acid rain. Trill's environmental suit malfunctioned, leaving her gasping in the toxic air. Even Zorn was struggling, his regenerative abilities taxed by continuous exposure to the elements. Meanwhile, I had built a shelter from local vegetation, filtered water through a makeshift charcoal system, and fashioned primitive weapons from the bones of something that had tried to eat me. When the simulation ended, Commander Vexlor's mandibles were uncharacteristically still. "Explain," he demanded. I looked up from the trap I was setting. "Explain what? How to set a snare?" "Explain how you're not dead, Fletcher." I blinked. Humans come from a death world, Commander. Earth throws everything it's got at us: hurricanes, volcanoes, hippos, Australian wildlife, corporate team-building exercises. We're good at surviving stuff that wants to kill us because literally everything on our planet has tried at some point. For the first time, the team looked at me with something other than pity or amusement. It wasn't quite respect yet, but it was a start. Besides, I added with a grin, if I died during training, I'd never get to hear Zorn admit he's impressed by a meat bag. Zorn's scales flushed a deep blue. I said no such thing. "You will," I promised. "Just wait until you see what I can do with duct tape and a bad attitude." Our first real mission together came sooner than expected. A distress signal from Research Outpost Epsilon 12 in the Cygnus sector standard procedure called for investigation and potential evacuation. "Routine mission," Commander Vexlor assured us as our dropship entered the planet's atmosphere. "Scientific outpost, probably equipment malfunction or minor security issue." "If it's so routine," I asked, checking my woefully inadequate sidearm for the 5th time, "why send the Stellar Wraiths?" Because Nexara explained, her antenna twitching in that way they did when she was accessing data. Epsilon 12 is researching phase shift technology. Very classified, very valuable. "And very dangerous in the wrong hands," added Kiri, feathers sleek against her head, and what I'd learned was her combat-ready posture. The outpost came into view, a gleaming collection of domes and spires nestled in an alien forest. Everything looked peaceful enough, but my intestines were doing that twisty thing they do when something's about to go spectacularly wrong. "I don't like this," I muttered as we touched down. "Your species' paranoia is showing, Fletcher," Zorn rumbled, hefting his massive assault cannon. "It's not paranoia if something's actually trying to kill you," I countered. "And on Earth, something is always trying to kill you." Commander Vexlor silenced us with a click of his mandibles. Standard sweep formation. "Zorn, take point. Fletcher, stay in the middle where you won't get hurt." I opened my mouth to protest but decided against it. No point arguing when they were probably right. The main entrance to the facility slid open with an ominous hiss. No reception committee, no scientists, no security guards, just empty corridors bathed in emergency lighting. "Life signs?" Commander Vexlor asked. Nexara's eyes flickered as she interfaced with her scanner. Multiple readings, but scattered. Something's interfering with the sensors. We moved deeper into the facility, passing abandoned workstations and dropped equipment. In the central lab, we found our first body, a Xenovian scientist, blue blood pooling around what used to be his head. "That," I said quietly, "is not an equipment malfunction." Melix crouched beside the corpse, crystalline structure shifting as he analyzed the scene. "These marks are consistent with Draxian claws." "Impossible," Commander Vexlor snapped. "The Draxian Collective signed the peace treaty 2 stellar cycles ago." "Tell that to the dead guy," I muttered. That's when the lights went out. All of them. Even the emergency backup systems. In the total darkness, I heard at first the soft click of talons on metal, moving fast. Too fast. "Contact," Kiri screeched, and then chaos erupted. Plasma fire lit up the darkness in strobing flashes, revealing glimpses of our attackers' Draxians all right, but something was wrong with them. Their movements were jerky, uncoordinated, their signature battle cries replaced by guttural snarls. "Fall back," Commander Vexlor ordered. No one needed to be told twice. We retreated down the corridor, firing as we went. Zorn roared as claws raked across his scales. Melx took a hit that shattered part of his left side. Even Trill, with her 4 arms and lightning reflexes, was struggling to land shots in the darkness. And then somehow I was at the front of the group. Not because I'd pushed forward, but because everyone else had instinctively fallen behind me. "Fletcher, get back in formation," Commander Vexlor shouted. But I didn't. Couldn't. Something about the Draxians' movement patterns had clicked in my brain. They weren't attacking randomly, they were hurting us. "It's a trap," I yelled, diving sideways just as a ceiling panel crashed down, revealing 3 more Draxians ready to pounce. I fired my sidearm straight up, hitting a power coupling. Sparks showered down, momentarily illuminating the corridor and giving my teammates precious seconds to adjust. What followed was pure instinct. While my alien comrades relied on their superior strength, speed, or natural weapons, I was rolling, dodging, using the environment itself as a weapon. Knocking over sample containers to create slick surfaces under Draxian feet. Redirecting their momentum to send them crashing into walls. Using their own weight and strength against them. When the emergency generators finally kicked in, restoring partial lighting, the immediate threat had been neutralized. 7 Draxian attackers lay dead or incapacitated around us. The team stared at me, standing there with my pathetic human sidearm, breathing hard but somehow uninjured. "What?" I asked, suddenly self-conscious. "You've never seen someone improvise before." "You moved differently," Kiri said, her voice unusually quiet. "Like you could predict where they would strike," Nexara added, antenna quivering. I shrugged. "Not predict. Just recognize patterns. Humans are good at that survival thing, you know? Now, can we please get out of here before more of those things show up?" As we made our way back to the extraction point, I couldn't help noticing that the formation had shifted. No longer was I carefully protected in the middle of the group. I was at the front, and everyone else was behind me. Back on the ship, Commander Vexlor called me into his private quarters. I braced myself for a lecture about disobeying orders or needlessly endangering myself. Instead, he was studying a holographic display of my biography. "Sit, Fletcher," he said, mandibles unusually still. I sat. If this is about the unauthorized use of the power coupling as a weapon, I'd like to point out that it worked. "This isn't about your creative improvisation," he replied, tapping a talon against the display. though we will discuss that later. This is about something more fundamental: your species. The display shifted to show comparative anatomical diagrams humans alongside various other sentient species in the galaxy. Did you know, Commander Vexlor continued, that humans are classified as deathworlders in the Galactic Index? Your homeworld is considered so hostile that most species would require significant environmental suits just to survive its surface. Earth isn't that bad, I protested. Sure, we've got extreme weather patterns, tectonic instability, and about 1 million species of bacteria trying to colonize our bodies at any given moment, but... Precisely, Vexlor interrupted. And yet, instead of developing traditional evolutionary advantages like exoskeletons, regenerative abilities, or enhanced physical attributes, humans developed something else. He pulled up another display, this one showing brain activity patterns, pattern recognition, risk assessment, adaptability, and something our xenopsychologists call practical paranoia, the ability to constantly anticipate threats that don't yet exist. I shifted uncomfortably. We call it anxiety, Commander. It's not exactly a superpower. Isn't it? Vexlor clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. The mission recordings show you reacted to the Draxian ambush before any evidence of it was present. How? I thought back to those tense moments in the dark corridor. Something felt off about their attack pattern. Too erratic for trained soldiers, but too coordinated for random aggression. And they were driving us toward Junction C7, not away from it. And how could you possibly know that in the dark, during your first visit to that facility, while under fire? I shrugged. I memorized the facility schematic during the mission brief. Standard procedure, isn't it? For humans, perhaps. Vexlor's compound eyes fixed on me with new intensity. Do you know why the rest of the squad positioned themselves behind you during the attack? Because I stupidly put myself in the front? No, Fletcher. Because you were the only one who appeared to know what was happening. He leaned forward. Your species evolved not as apex predators like the Zornians or defensive specialists like the Melaxians. You evolved as prey that turned the tables on your predators. And that makes you something far more dangerous, survivors. The conversation was interrupted by a chime at the door. Nexara entered, her antenna twitching with excitement. Commander, analysis of the Draxian bodies is complete, she reported. They were infected with a neurological parasite that overrode their higher brain functions. Preliminary data suggests the parasite originated from the phase shift experiments. That explains the irregular behavior patterns, I mused. Indeed, Nexara agreed, giving me an appraising look. Your observation about their movement was correct, Fletcher. It wasn't random aggression, it was the parasite attempting to herd us toward the main laboratory. Where more of them were waiting, I concluded. Classic trap behavior. Like wolves driving prey toward a bottleneck. Or humans recognizing the trap because they've been the prey before, Commander Vexlor added quietly. After Nexara left, Vexlor brought up another display, this one showing historical data about human conflicts. Your species has spent most of its evolutionary history fighting each other, your environment, diseases, predators. You've developed psychological mechanisms that other species find disturbing. Like what? I asked, genuinely curious now. Like your ability to normalize danger. Your capacity to remain functional under conditions that would trigger shutdown responses in most sentient beings. Your tendency to run toward threats rather than away from them. He clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. Most species in the galaxy evolve toward specialization. Humans evolve toward adaptability at all costs. I thought about that for a moment. So you're saying the reason everyone hid behind me isn't because I'm brave or skilled. It's because I'm paranoid enough to see danger coming and crazy enough to walk toward it.
Precisely, Commander Vexlor's mandibles formed what I'd come to recognize as his version of a smile. And that, Fletcher, is why you might be the most valuable member of this unit.
2 months later, the 47th was deployed to the Helios Nexus, a massive space station serving as the diplomatic hub for 17 different species. Intelligence suggested a terrorist cell was planning to disrupt the upcoming Galactic Summit by targeting the station's central power core. Straightforward security operation. Commander Vexlor briefed us as our shuttle approached the gleaming, wheel-shaped station. We locate the terrorists, neutralize the threat, protect the diplomats. When you say straightforward, I said, checking my now customized sidearm, do you mean actually straightforward or routine mission to Epsilon 12 straightforward? Vexlor's mandibles clicked in what I now recognized as his version of a chuckle. Point taken, Fletcher. Maintain your, what do you call it? Healthy paranoia, I supplied. Yes, maintain that. The team's dynamic had shifted substantially since our first mission. I was no longer the weird human tag-along, but an integral part of the unit. Zorn had even stopped referring to me as meatbag, upgrading me to surprisingly durable meatbag, high praise from a Zornian. We docked at the station's security bay and were met by Chief Security Officer Drav, a Polarian with too many eyes and not enough patience. The summit begins in 3 hours, Drav buzzed, leading us through the bustling station. Over 200 diplomats and their staffs are already on board. If your intelligence is correct, we have very little time. What security measures are already in place? I asked, scanning our surroundings. Something about the station's layout was pinging my danger radar. Standard protocols, Drav replied dismissively. Identity verification, weapons scanners, neural pattern monitoring. What about the maintenance tunnels? I pressed. Service robots. Environmental controls. Drav's middle eye swiveled to focus on me. Those are secondary systems. The terrorists would need to breach primary security too. Humans always check the back door when the front door is heavily guarded, I interrupted. May I see the station schematics? Commander Vexlor nodded his approval, and a reluctant Drav provided access to the station's layout. As I studied the intricate network of tunnels, shafts, and access points, the others spread out to secure the immediate area. That's when I noticed it. These maintenance tunnels all converge near the atmospheric processing center, not the power core. So, Drav buzzed impatiently. So if I wanted to take out a space station full of diplomats, I wouldn't bother with the power core. It's too well protected and has too many backups. I zoomed in on the atmospheric processors. But the air? That's different. Contaminate the air supply, and you could incapacitate everyone on the station before they even know they're under attack. Commander Vexlor's mandibles clicked rapidly, his version of alarm. Nexara, scan the atmospheric composition. Nexara's antenna twitched as she interfaced with the station's systems. Nominal readings, wait. There's a minor fluctuation in Sector 7's oxygen levels. Could be a sensor malfunction. Or it could be the beginning of a major atmospheric alteration, I countered. Where's Sector 7 in relation to the maintenance tunnels? The answer came not from Nexara's scan, but from the station itself. A distant rumble shook the deck plates beneath our feet, followed by emergency klaxons. Explosive decompression in Sector 7. Drav's communication device squawked. Containment fields activated.
They've breached the atmospheric processors, I realized, but that's not their endgame. It's a diversion.
Commander Vexlor didn't hesitate. Team split up. Zorn, Kiri, Trill secure the diplomats. Melix, Nexara find the breach and contain it. Fletcher, with me. As chaos erupted around us, station personnel running to emergency stations, diplomats being hurried to secure areas, Vexlor, and I raced toward the station's central hub. My mind was racing faster than my feet, connecting dots that others might miss. They want the diplomats in the safe rooms, I said between breaths. That's the trap. Explain, Vexlor demanded as we ran. Think about it, if you wanted to take out specific targets, you wouldn't just contaminate the general air supply. You'd force your targets into a contained space with its own environmental system, then hit that system directly. Vexlor's translator couldn't quite capture the string of alien curses he unleashed, but I got the gist. We changed course, heading for the diplomatic safe rooms. We were too late. As we arrived, the massive security doors were already sliding shut, sealing the diplomats inside what they thought was safety. Override code Alpha 7 Delta. Vexlor shouted at the security panel. Nothing happened. System compromised, came Nexara's voice through our comms. Someone's locked out the central computers. I analyzed the door mechanism. These are physical locks, not just electronic. They're designed to keep people out, not in. Can you break them? Vexlor asked. I gave him my best. Are you serious? Look, I'm good, Commander, but I'm not breakthrough reinforced titanium alloy blast doors good. Then how do we get in? I studied the surrounding corridor, mind racing through possibilities. We don't break in. We make them let us in. I tapped my comm unit. Nexara, can you trigger the fire suppression system in the safe room? The environmental controls are locked out, but yes, I can reroute power from secondary systems to force the sprinklers on. Do it, I ordered. Full power. Seconds later, alarms blared from inside the safe room as the sprinkler system unleashed a deluge. Water began seeping under the massive doors. Now what? Vexlor demanded. Now, I said, pulling a small device from my belt, we give them something worse than water to worry about. I placed the device against the door seam and activated it. A thin stream of foul-smelling smoke began pouring through the gap. What is that? Vexlor asked, mandibles clicking in disgust. Synthetic skunk spray? I replied with a grin. Standard human prank, non-toxic but absolutely unbearable. Combined with the water, it'll. The safe room doors suddenly slid open, revealing a crowd of soaked, furious diplomats desperate to escape the stench. As they poured out, I spotted figures in maintenance uniforms moving against the flow, their hands reaching for concealed weapons.
There, I shouted, diving forward. What followed was the kind of chaotic close-quarters combat that humans excel at. While Vexlor used his superior strength and chitinous armor to advantage, I relied on what my species does best, fighting dirty. Improvising weapons from nearby objects. Using the environment itself as both weapon and shield, exploiting the terrorist expectations about human fragility. When it was over, 5 would-be assassins lay unconscious or restrained, and the diplomats, though wet, smelly, and thoroughly annoyed, were alive. As security teams finally arrived to take control of the situation, Commander Vexlor regarded me with what I'd come to recognize as respect. That, he said, mandibles clicking softly, was not in any GDF tactical manual I've ever read. I shrugged, wincing at a newly discovered bruise. That's the thing about humans, Commander. We don't always follow the manual. Sometimes we write our own. The aftermath of the Helios Nexus incident changed everything. The 47th Special Operations Unit, the Stellar Wraiths, became the talk of the Galactic Defense Force. And I, much to my surprise, became something of a legend. The human shield, they called me, though not for the reasons you might think. Not because I was expendable or placed in the line of fire, but because I was the one everyone wanted in front of them when things went wrong. 6 months after joining the unit, I found myself in Commander Vexlor's office again, this time for a very different conversation. Congratulations, Lieutenant Fletcher, he said, sliding a datapad across his desk. Your promotion has been approved by High Command. I stared at the datapad in disbelief. Lieutenant, but I've only been with the unit for 6 months, yes, a record for non-native species advancement. Vexlor's mandibles formed that familiar click smile. You've earned it. The unit's efficiency has increased by 37% since your arrival, and our mission success rate is now the highest in the GDF. All because you put the squishy human up front. I joked. Because we recognize that different evolutionary paths create different strengths, he corrected. The Galactic Defense Force was founded on the principle of species cooperation, yet we've always prioritized certain physical attributes over others. Your presence has forced us to reevaluate that approach. The door chimed, and the rest of the team entered. Zorn, Curie, Melx, Trill, and Nexara. Each carried a small package. The traditional gifts for advancement, Vexlor explained. One by one, my teammates presented their offerings. From Zorn, a scale from his own crest, mounted in a protective case. From Curie, a feather quill that would never dull. From Melx, a crystal that glowed with inner light. From Trill, a knife forged in the gravity wells of her homeworld. From Nexara, a data crystal containing the unit's complete mission history. And from me, Commander Vexlor said, producing a final package, this. Inside was a new insignia for my uniform, the standard Stellar Wraiths emblem, but with a small addition, a silhouette of a human figure at the center. It is customary, Vexlor continued, for newly promoted officers to lead the next mission. We've received orders to investigate unusual activity in the radial system. The mission briefing indicates potential hostile forces, unknown technologies, and significant risk. I looked around at my teammates at Zorn's impressive physical strength, Curie's incredible speed, Melx's near indestructibility, Trill's multiple limbs and combat skills, off Nexara's technological integration, and then down at my own fragile human body. When do we leave? I asked. That's the spirit, Lieutenant Meatbag, Zorn rumbled, his scales flushing with what I now knew was their version of amusement. 1 week later, we stood in formation at the loading bay of our sleek assault craft. I was at point position, the rest of the team arrayed behind me. Standard deployment protocol, Commander Vexlor announced. Lieutenant Fletcher will take point. The rest of you stay alert and follow his lead. Even though he has no natural armor, no regenerative abilities, no extra limbs, and is statistically the most vulnerable member of this unit. Nexara asked, her antenna twitching with what I now recognized as her version of a smile. Precisely because of that, Vexlor replied, humans don't survive by being the strongest or the fastest. They survive by seeing the danger first and having 17 contingency plans ready. 16, I corrected. I'm still working on contingency plan 17. As the bay doors opened and we prepared to deploy, Zorn leaned down to speak quietly near my ear. Just so you know, Fletcher, I still think you're a fragile meat bag. I grinned up at him, and I still think you're an oversized lizard with delusions of invulnerability. But he added, if something tries to kill us out there, I'm glad you'll see it coming first. That's the thing about humans, I said as we moved toward the open bay doors. We're paranoid enough to expect the worst, crazy enough to run toward it, and stubborn enough to survive it. That's why the galaxy hasn't figured us out yet. Zorn made a sound that his translator didn't bother to interpret, the Zornian equivalent of a laugh. And that meatbag is why you're the one we all hide behind. As we stepped into the unknown, I couldn't help but smile. In a galaxy of specialized evolutionary marvels, it turned out that humanity's greatest strength was our stubborn refusal to specialize at all. We weren't the strongest, the fastest, or the most durable. We were just the species crazy enough to think we could be anything we needed to be. And sometimes that's exactly what the galaxy needs most.